All right, guys, I get this question at least 5 or 6 times a week. How do I get into the outdoors business? How do I become a hunting guide? How do I become a fishing guide? And how do I have a long-term successful career in that world? For better or worse, there's a ton of negativity around this subject. You'll never be able to take care of yourself. You'll never be able to take care of your financial responsibilities if you've got a family or kids. You won't be able to pay your mortgage. That is just not true. There are people in these industries that are highly successful, and they're successful by any metric. But there is a whole bunch of bullshit out there in this business. So I want to clarify some things so anybody who's interested in this career path, they understand what's involved and the realities of actually making a good living at it. At the end of the video, I will talk about some nitty-gritty financial details, what the average guide makes, what kind of numbers you need to do in the business if this is your primary source of income. All right, so first, some reasons why you might want to pursue this career. The first one is obvious. You want to spend time outdoors. In today's society and our economy, very few jobs are going to allow you as much time outside as outfitting and guiding. If that's essential to you, and it's been essential to me in my life, then that is a huge plus. The next reason why you might want to get into this business is you're somebody who's willing to give up monetary gain right now for experiences. This can sound a little crazy, but that's just part of the deal in the outfitting and guiding business. You're going to end up with awesome experiences and awesome stories, but you will lose out a little financially. Let me explain, because you might be thinking this is contrary to what I started the video with, but I'm not saying you won't be able to pay your bills or you won't ever be rich even. But what I am saying is for every unit of workload and stress that you put into this career path, you're going to get less of a monetary gain than you would otherwise if you would have gone into a different industry. And people ask me, why do you think that is, Cliff? The reason is that all these outdoor recreation businesses, there's a lot of people who want to get into them for the right reasons and for the wrong reasons, whatever. It doesn't really matter, but there are a lot of people wanting to get into these businesses. So naturally, after you account for everything, your capital costs, your expenses, everything that's involved, the margins in these businesses are generally lower than other businesses. So that's why there just is inherently this trade-off. Every single outfitter or fishing charter captain that I know who's truly successful, I'm not talking about insta-famous guys that in reality are having a difficult time just paying their mortgage. I'm talking about people who are successful by all industry-wide standards, right? Those individuals that I know that are truly successful in hunting and fishing, if I took them, threw them in a time machine, took them back 40 years ago, and then had them choose a different career or had them build up a business in a different industry, I can almost guarantee that today they would be 2 to 3 times as wealthy. The last reason that a lot of people get into this business, and it's gonna sound egotistical and petty, but it's a reality for a lot of the successful captains I know, a lot of the successful guides I know, one of the reasons they got into this business is they wanted to get very good at that endeavor. They wanted to be the best marlin fisherman. They wanted to be the best elk hunting guide. And it's just a reality. I talk about this in a lot of my videos. If you want to get really good at something, you have to be able to spend a lot of time on it and then iterate on that, right? And guides and captains are given the ability to do that. It's obviously part of the deal, right? You're gonna spend more time in the field than you would otherwise if that's not where you work. Hemingway Santiago wasn't a hobby fisherman, and Captain Ahab wasn't a weekend warrior. All right, so the number one takeaway from this video, I'll tell you right now, and if you're watching this because you've got a son or a daughter who's interested in being a guide or outfitter as a career path, please have them at least come listen to this, because this is a pull your head out of your ass piece of advice. The number one thing that I tell people who want to get into this business seriously, before you even step foot into the business, go out and learn a completely unrelated skill that you can monetize. I'm sure that just burst the bubble of a lot of you that are watching this, but go out and get a skill that you can monetize. It needs to be something that's not location specific and not seasonal. All the guides that I've seen really succeed in this business and get up the ladder quickly, they had this in their back pocket. And even the older, highly established fishing businesses and outfitting businesses, the folks that run those businesses and built them up, if you talk to them, they will tell you that they had some other skill set. And here's some examples, guys. real estate broker, construction guy, all the trades, electrician, plumber, welder, carpenter, mechanic, equipment operator, computer programmer, things completely unrelated to the outdoors. All these different segments in the hunting and fishing world are either highly seasonal or highly correlated to the status of the economy, or both of those. Most of them are both. They're highly seasonal, and if the economy slows down, business slows down. If you're getting into this business and it's gonna take you 2, 3, 5 years to really start gaining momentum where you're gonna have a full-time job, but during that growth period of time when you're really kind of cutting your teeth, there's gonna be seasonality to your paycheck, and you need to be able to take that seasonality out. And I know a bunch of you are going, nah, I don't have any financial responsibilities, I can make it through, I'll just live off beans and rice for the first 4 or 5 years, and then I'll make it, I'll have a full-time source of income, and I'll go from there. I've seen a lot of people come into the industry with that mindset, and all of them end up leaving. There's 2 things that happen. One, life happens, they get married, they have kids, they don't plan on this. They just fall in love, things happen, right? So all of a sudden they have financial responsibilities, or the economy slows down. We forget this because we've been living in a pretty good economy for the last decade. But when the economy slows down, it doesn't matter how great of a fishing captain you are, how great of a hunting guide you are, your revenue from that world is going to be reduced. So in both these scenarios, you have to make up for that income. Now, if somebody has a skill set in their back pocket, it's not that big of a deal. They can just work harder at that endeavor. Yeah, you may not love that skill set. I'm not saying go out and do another skill set you love. I'm saying have another skill set that you can make money at. Obviously, you're wanting to go into the outdoors because you love that, but this skill set is just about money. You have to be able to make some money to fill in the gaps. If you're somebody who doesn't have an already established skill set, what happens when you have this extra financial burden is first you go off and now you have to go get the skill set. So you spend 6, 8 months getting the skill set, but then you spend the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months catching up financially. So now you've been out of the outfitting, guiding, fishing game for 2 years. Well, I can tell you that if you're established, like you're building momentum, you've been at it for 3 or 4 seasons, people know you, clients know you, you've got a good reputation. If you disappear for 2 years or 18 months, that means 2 seasons, you are now a nobody and you're pretty much out of the business. That is just a statistical fact. The second reason is related but different. If you have another skill set, you're much more appealing to potential employers. Outfitters hiring hunting guides, charter boat businesses hiring fishing guides. If you have another skill set, you're much more appealing. The first reason is a little counterintuitive, but that's most folks running these businesses, they want you to be able to take care of yourself in the off season because they want you to progress with them and learn and get better, but generally they're not willing to deal with the financial burden of you on their payroll year round, particularly with somebody who's not already established as a seasoned guide. So when you're first starting, if they know that you can take care of yourself in the off season, and that means that you're more likely to come back in future years, then they're more likely to even start the process with you. The other more direct thing is a lot of these skill sets, these highly monetizable skill sets, they're useful within the outfitting business or within the fishing business. If you're a mechanic, you're good at working on trucks. If you're a horseshoer, you can help shoe the horses. If you're a computer programmer and you're handy with websites, you're handy with marketing, you're a sales guy. You know, sales is a great skill for you to go out, be a sales guy for a year before you get into outfitting. If you have that skill set, you can help within the outfitting businesses in a huge way. There's huge value in that to a potential employer. So go out there, bite the bullet, and bust your ass to get one of these monetizable skill sets first. And who knows, you might fall in love with that skill set and you might do that instead of guiding and outfitting. But if you don't, you're always gonna have that skill set, and now you can drop into this career path prepared for future success. All right, so the next natural question is, what are the first steps that somebody should take to get into this business? Go find the people and businesses with the best long-term reputation in that space. If you can get in with them, that'll give you a lot more trajectory than if you are to go work for somebody or some business that's fairly unknown. If you can work with somebody who's well known, has a marketing presence, has a good reputation, that'll help you in the future. And then regions matter. And the reason regions matter is in hunting and fishing, there's a lot of regional specific knowledge. And a lot of that has to do with how the operations work. The guys bill fishing in Florida versus the guys bill fishing in St. Thomas versus the marlin boats off the Baja Peninsula. All of them have a different way they operate. So you want to be in one of the top regions so you have options as you learn. There's some transferable skills, but the region does matter. And the other thing is there's just kind of this brand aura around certain regions, right? Okay, yeah, I've been an elk hunting guide in the Colorado wilderness, right? Well, everybody in that space, all the clients, all the operating businesses, they know that region, they know what you were probably exposed to. So that can be a very important aspect of your trajectory. The other general piece of advice I'll give you that can exponentially help you gain traction in this business is really start to learn how to please clients. Make it so clients want you to guide them in the future. That'll help you for all sorts of reasons, but it'll also give you a very practical skill set that applies to every aspect of the business. If you move on to have your own outfitting business, your own charter business with 6 or 7, 10, 15 guides working for you, you still have to learn how to be a likable person to your clients, deal with problems, deal with things that come up. So start on that early. If you start on that early and learn from every interaction you have with clients, your trajectory in this business will be way more positive. So one thing to think about, because a lot of you are going to fall into that category of wanting to do your own thing eventually in this world, you need to start thinking about that early on. How are you going to build up some equity in a business that already exists? How are you going to get some capital to buy out a business? Or how are you going to build up your business from the ground up, right? A little insider secret is a lot of that can be dealt with in the same way, and that's client relationships. Just being a very good guy, a very good outfitter that people want to deal with and they want to have the interaction with and they want to have the adventures with. If you become a master at that, all of these things become easy. Getting capital, starting your own business, slowly buying equity in a business that already exists, all of that is a whole lot easier if you already have established client relationships. If you look at a lot of the big outfitting businesses in this world, all over North America and across the globe, a lot of them have been purchased by guides who work for those outfitting businesses that have direct relationships with a bunch of the clientele. And in a lot of cases, those clients have helped those guides buy those businesses, finance them, and help those individuals do this as a long-term career. All right, so this next piece of advice makes me laugh a little bit. Start building your social media presence now, particularly YouTube and Instagram. In terms of marketing hunts, marketing fishing trips, these are the biggest platforms in that space right now. So start building your exposure on those platforms as you get into the business. The reason I laugh a little bit about this, and the reason that this is a little tricky at the current moment and is not just universal advice that everybody's giving, inside the industry, inside the guided fishing business, inside the hunting business and the outfitting business, for the most part, the general view of hunting influencers or fishing influencers is that they're a bunch of cheese dicks. There's not a bunch of respect within the industry for people who are doing a lot of promotion on YouTube, Instagram, and other social media platforms. There just isn't. And this is coming from a guy that's literally doing a YouTube video for you right now. And I've made a personal bet on social media for exposure within the hunting and fishing world. So obviously I'm biased. 12, 13 years ago, there were a lot of folks and there was a lot of, high-end operations that didn't even have a website. That's 100% gone the wayside. Everybody has a good web presence now. But in terms of social media, in the last 2 to 4 years, I've seen that exponentially grow. And the reason is a lot of operators are starting to realize that people are using social media to look at their guides, to look at their business, and get a judgment of if that's an adventure they want to go on. So these platforms are starting to matter more and more. And part of that is just the direct marketing expense that all these fishing and hunting operators have to deal with right now. A lot of them are paying booking fees, they're paying for marketing, they're paying for exposure, but they may have one guide who's working for them who's got 60,000 followers on Instagram, and all of a sudden they're realizing that that one guide's exposure is bringing their business more booking than all the other marketing spend that they're spending. So it has a practical direct effect on them, and that's going to become more and more common, and more people are going to consider it when they're hiring their guides. The other thing about it is it's a way to build up personal equity as a hunting guide or a fishing guide. If you move on to work for another person or build up your own thing, you still have your online presence. So start building that now, because that's close to a free way to build up personal equity in this business that has value right now. It may not be perceived that way right now, but I guarantee you in 7 or 8 years from now, it'll be a huge deal. So I recommend anybody when you go down this path, start building up that exposure and start building it up in a professional way. Make sure people see what you're doing, the skill sets you're building up, but also when you're guiding out there, put out social media that shows people what the adventure is about, what the expectations should be, and what are the cool things they might see if they go on those adventures with you. And it can feel a little weird putting yourself out there, and you might feel that people in the business are judging you, and chances are some of them are, as I mentioned, but I do think there's value there. All right, so the part that probably some of you have been waiting for, you want to hear the financial nitty-gritty of the business. What am I going to get paid? You know, what could I potentially make long-term? All of those things. It's a broad category. I mean, that question right there, what can I make in the long term? You can make a great living and take care of your family and live in a decent neighborhood and be happy and be fulfilled. You know, maybe that means you're making 100 grand a year, 150 grand a year. And then on the far end of the spectrum, you could break the mold and you could make $5-10 million a year in the fishing business or hunting business. That is a possibility. It's not the norm, but there's a huge range, just like there is in every other industry. So I'm gonna focus on kind of the inner part of that spectrum, kind of the more normal part of that spectrum. And when you don't own part of a business, you don't have any equity in a business, and you're just getting paid like day rate for guiding, that usually ranges from 100 to on the high end, $750 a day, right? That's generally the range you're gonna see across fishing guides and hunting guides. A couple of the variables in that are obvious, just reliability, experience, skill set. Those are the things that you think about. Well, you're just a better hunter or better fisherman, right? But those are actually the smaller chunk of the pie. The bigger chunk of the pie in the variation of that rate is one, just the practical aspect of what you bring to the table in terms of assets. So do you have your own boat? Do you have your own four-wheeler? Do you have your own truck? Do you have your own horses and certain types of hunting outfitting? Do you have good optics? All those things matter, and there can be a lot of money involved in that. I had guides working for me that brought, you know, between their vehicles and their horses, they might have brought 150 grand worth of assets with them. So of course their day rate would be on the higher end of that spectrum. And in the fishing world, it's the same thing. There are guys that guide for charter businesses that own their own boat. They own their own rods and reels. They own all their own gear. Well, that factors into the day rate. And then the last component of this that is very relevant, but a lot of guys are weird about talking about it, and that's demand from the client. If you're a guide that a lot of clients want to hunt or fish with, you will end up getting paid more. I guarantee it. And you may not be the best hunter or the best fisherman, but it's just a supply and demand thing. If clients want you to guide them, your day rate is going to go up. And this circles back to my last point, because if you have a professional, positive presence on social media, I promise you, you will get hunters and fishermen that specifically want to hunt with you. There are guides out there already in the fly fishing world and hunting business that may be working for a much larger company, but they personally are getting more demand for their personal services within that entity than all the rest of the guys and the rest of the business combined. And a lot of the reasoning for that is their social media presence. So again, keep that in mind. That's a great way to win on my previous point and to win on your day rate. All of a sudden, you're not so concerned about other guides that are making fun of you because you've got a big Instagram profile when you're making twice the day rate they are just because of demand. All right, so now let's talk about the financial details and expectations within the hunting or fishing business. And I'm gonna give you general guidelines here. The point of this is really to make it so you can have personal goals within the industry and understand the underlying dynamics of that, what you're gonna need to do to achieve those goals. So first, let's take the case where you're just a solo entrepreneur, right? You've got your own boat, you've got your own, small hunting camp, that sort of setup. You're still doing a lot of the guiding, but you own your own business. You can expect that after all the expenses are paid, you're gonna net something roughly around 30% of your gross revenue. So that means to make 75 grand a year, your gross revenue is gonna have to roughly be 250 grand. So let's take the example that you're in the fishing business and you run a day charter for 1,200 bucks a day. For a lot of types of fishing, that's roughly what you'll see in the industry. If that's the case, in order to make 75 grand a year, you're gonna have to fish around 200 days a year. In most regions, that's a pretty damn full schedule. And I guarantee you it's a lot of work. So baseline, that's what you're looking at if you have your own business and you're a one-man show. Now, once you move into outfitting businesses and charter businesses that have a crew of guides working for them, usually that net margin actually drops just because they have more administrative expense and they have more employee expense. So net margins in that business are typically, 15 to 25%. So if you want to make 175 grand a year, which that's a reasonable salary for a small business person, to make that, you're going to need to gross around $900,000 a year. With $1,200 a day fishing rates, you're looking at doing 750 days of fishing per year. So of course that means multiple guides, multiple boats. In today's day, for most kind of guided hunting that, those 6-7 day trips are running between 5 grand and 10 grand. For that kind of business model, to make that type of living, 150, 180 grand, you're gonna have to do 750, 800 days of guided hunting. And because of the seasonality of hunting, that means a very busy schedule generally. Guys that are doing 800 days of guided hunting, 1,000 days of guided hunting, for the season, they are crazy busy. So you can use those numbers, you can plug in your own numbers, and you can kind of figure out what you're getting yourself into. And if your long-term financial goals of what you want to deal with in terms of a business align with that, because that's what the industry looks like. This is not an industry where you're gonna have 1 employee or 3 employees. It doesn't matter how awesome you are. It doesn't matter if you're on the front of every elk hunting magazine, every fishing magazine, you're on every fishing blog, any of that shit. You can be the biggest name in the industry, but you can't scale up as an operator in the hunting and fishing world to big numbers without having a lot of personnel working for you. So just keep that in mind. Now, there are other ways in the business that you can make a little money here, you can make a little bit there. I know guys that make money on apparel. I know guys that run shooting schools. A lot of folks make a little money off sponsors. There's a lot of different ways you can add to it. But for the most part, if you're running a charter business or an outfitting business, your focus is going to be on the business, and those are the expectations you should have in terms of what the numbers look like and how big of a business you're going to need to run for your goals. And what I have found in the business is the more you expand with employees, the less you're doing some of the things that we mentioned at the very beginning of this video, which are reasons why you got into the business, right? Spending time outside, spending time guiding, spending time getting better at that endeavor. A lot of that will get mitigated a little bit as you expand into more and more employees. All right, folks, so I hope that gave you kind of an inside look into the industry, the different career paths. But the main thing is I hope it deterred some of you from going down this path, and I hope it motivated a bunch of you to start down the path also and to take the right steps to succeed. If you got value from this video, please do me a huge favor and like it and subscribe to the channel. Good luck out there, guys. Till next time.